In a previous video, I showed the use of these L brackets, which get attached to the Accu-Sled II for slicing boards on the bandsaw. And these brackets work quite nicely for slicing boards from 2 inches tall up to 12 inches tall. However, most of the work I do in my shop, I'm slicing boards that are 2 inches tall and less. So I saw a need for a shorter fence to attach and slice these shorter boards. So I developed this flat plate clamp, which gets attached to the Accu-Sled II, which in turn attaches to a 1.5 inch tall sacrificial fence. And this is used to attach smaller boards to slice them on the bandsaw. The Accu-Sled II table rides 1.5 inches above the top of the bandsaw table. So I made these aluminum plates. These plates are 1/4 inch thick by 2 inches wide by 4 3/4 inches long. And there's a series of holes that have been drilled into the plate. These bottom 3 holes are 1/4 inch in diameter, and they're designed to line up with the holes in the Accu-Sled II plate. And then these 1/4 inch, 20 thread per inch screws will attach this plate to this Accu-Sled II plate. Then there's 2 additional holes here, which are designed for these number 8 particle board screws, and that enables you to attach a sacrificial fence, which is 1.5 inches tall, to this plate. So that attaches the system together. So now you have a surface here that you can mount your board and slice these on the bandsaw. Now I typically use 3 or 4 of these plates on the bandsaw. You could just as easily make these from plywood. You could get some 1/4 inch or even 3/8 inch plywood and make similar plates. They're not that difficult to make. It's just 3 holes and then 2 holes here. So I'll be demonstrating in this video slicing some boards as thin as 1/4 inch up to 2 inches tall using this Accu-Sled II system. What makes the system nice is it's nice and short. You can see your work as you're cutting it, and you can slice thinner boards quite easily. In a previous video you saw I sliced these 10.5 inch wide boards on the Accu-Sled II system using the taller L brackets. And I'm planning on using this board to make some shelving. I'm making a cabinet, and I'm making some veneer, so I'm using some either 3/4 inch plywood or particle board, and this will be the top for these shelves. I'll be making a couple of these to make the shelves. In making those boards, I also need to make the edges for the board. And so I need a piece of, about 3/4 inch stock to make the front edges for those panel boards. I'm doing that instead of making the entire shelf out of solid wood. I'm using that 10.5 inch wide piece for the top of the shelf, and this will be the front edge. So I need to cut some maybe 1/16 inch thick pieces for the edges of those shelves. I have my 1.5 inch piece of MDF, which is 36 inches long, and I attached a board. This is a piece of cherry again. It's about a little over 3/4 of an inch thick, and I'll be slicing some thin strips from this. So the way this works now is, first of all, I need to attach my brackets to my Accu-Sled II system. I already have 3 of them attached, so I just attach the 4th one. And I typically don't use all 3 holes. I put these in here just in case you wanted to use them, but I really think 2 is enough to hold it in place. And then I attach those in place. These are just hex drive screws. You can use any type of screws you want, but I'm using a hex head screws for this. And then I need to attach my sacrificial fence to these brackets using these panel screws. And I typically pre-drill a hole and then use 2 screws to attach that sacrificial fence. And go ahead and attach the rest of the... I said I normally use 3 or 4. I think because this board is so thin, I think 4 might be a better choice. So I am using 4 in this case. So now we're all set to cut those slivers off this about 3/4 inch thick piece of cherry. And what makes the system nice, I can use my laser beam to see exactly where I'm going to cut. By having this so short, I can see exactly where I'm cutting, so it's much nicer. So again, I use the same procedure. Push my board so it just touches the sacrificial fence. zero out my gauge, pull my fence back, make sure my mag jigs are open, make sure these are locked, one full turn for the curve of the blade, and this first piece is just to cut off some scraps. So let's cut off 25 thousandths just to give me a flat surface, and then lock my mag jigs in place. The other thing I want to do, I'll lower my blade guides. Again, another advantage by having a shorter fence, I can bring these blade guides way down, so it's much safer operation of the bandsaw. So let me go ahead and cut off this piece of scrap, and then we'll cut some boards. Let's make them 50 thousandths of an inch thick. Okay, now I'm ready to cut my first piece off for this nut. It is squared off. Now what I like about making my own veneers and my own pieces is when you buy veneers, most of that veneer is very thin, and in the past when I was buying veneer, many times I'd sand it through it. By making my own, I make my veneers much thicker. So my veneers are usually between 50 and 100 thousandths inch thick. In this case, I think 50 thousandths will be enough. So it'll give me a little bit thicker front piece for the shelf, so it'll be stronger, less likely to chip and break off. So again, it just released my mag jig clamps, one revolution for the blade, and then one revolution will give me a 50 thousandths of an inch thick piece. To reduce viewing time, this video is actually speeded up 5 times normal speed. I tend to cut very slowly because the slower you cut, the smoother the cut. So there's my first strip that I could use for making the front edge of that shelf. And looking at it, I think I want something thicker. This shelf is going to receive a lot of bumping and abuse, so I actually want a thicker piece. So I think I'll make some 100 thousandths inch thick strips for the remaining shelves. And I can get 2 or 3 more pieces out of that board. So let me make some pieces 100 thousandths inch thick. So for that board, I did cut 3 pieces, 100 thousandths inch thick. There's not quite enough to get another piece out, but I do want to reuse my sacrificial fence. So what I'll do for this final cut, I'll put that blade right against the sacrificial fence and cut it off, and I can reuse the board for another project. So the next question is, how thin of a board can you slice with this system? Well, I have a piece of 1/4 inch thick maple. This is a 2 inch wide by 1/4 inch thick piece of maple, and I glued it to my 1.5 inch tall sacrificial fence and tried to make sure it was square. So when I was clamping, I tried to make sure that the stayed square, because I want this to ride on the bandsaw table. But that should be doable. And what this is, I'm making some bindings for guitars. So I'd sliced these previously on the Accu-Slice system to give me some 1/4 inch thick boards, and now I'm going to cut some boards between 80 and 100 thousandths inch thick. I think I'll probably make them 80 thousandths inch thick for this project. So again, it's the same thing. Attach it to the sacrificial fence using the particle board screws. Okay, we're all set. What I'm doing here, I always make sure that my board doesn't bind on the bandsaw table. If there's some glue on the bottom of that piece, or the board was warped too much, it might bind. That rides nice and smooth. So again, set my gauge to 0 once again. Push my board till it just touches the blade again. So again, I'm cutting off a piece of scrap here once again, which would probably be, let's just cut off 25 thousandths. Okay, I just changed this blade to an 18 teeth per inch blade. It's 18 teeth per inch. I bought this blade about probably 3 years ago, and it was sitting on the shelf. I never used it because it was just too fine. But it's a 1/2 inch wide blade, 18 teeth per inch, and I think it should be perfect for cutting these 1/4 inch thick boards. So I'm ready to cut here now. 70 thousandths, 80 thousandths. So the boards I'm cutting here are 1/4 inch tall by only 80 thousandths inch wide. It's a pretty small board. So there's our piece of wood, 1/4 inch thick, 80 thousandths inch thick, cut on the bandsaw, and that 18 teeth per inch blade worked pretty nice. And a lot safer than using it on a table saw. So we finished cutting off some more of these pieces, and each one would be 80 thousandths of an inch thick. So out of that 1/4 inch thick by 2 inch wide piece of maple, I got 12 pieces of wood. Again, 1/4 inch wide by 80 thousandths inch thick. Yeah, these are designed for use for bindings for guitars. So this came out good. So now I've sliced the board 3/4 of an inch thick and then down to 1/4 inch thick. So the next question is, how thick of a board can I cut? Now I always like having my board supported by a sacrificial fence. If the board's not supported by a sacrificial fence, when you get down to the very end, you can get vibration and get inaccurate cuts. So I don't like to have my board overhanging the sacrificial fence very little, if any at all. But in this case I have a 2 inch tall board where my sacrificial fence is 1.5 inches tall. So this board actually extends above the surface of my sacrificial fence by 1/2 inch. And that should work, so we'll give it a try here. So again, you know, my clamps only go as far as the sacrificial fence. They don't get in the way of the board, so I can put taller boards on here. But I won't want to put anything much taller than that because I might get too much vibration. But we'll go ahead and clamp this and mount it and see how it works. Again, I always try and center my board on my carriage. So now I have a flat surface on this Padauk board, again 2 inches tall. So let me cut some slices, say 25 thousandths of an inch thick. This Padauk board is 2 inches tall. As a result, I am cutting a little bit slower than I did cut on the previous boards. Also, Padauk tends to gum up the blade, so you gotta be careful to start smoking after a while. Yeah, that came out quite nice. Nice smooth finish. The 8 teeth per inch blade is probably the right size blade for a 2 inch tall board. When I was cutting a cherry board, I used an 8 teeth per inch blade. I probably could have used a 10. When I was cutting that maple board, which is a 1/4 inch thick, I probably could have used either a 14 or 18 teeth per inch blade. You know, the smaller the board, the smaller the cut, the finer the teeth in the blade can be. So let's measure this up, see what it looks out. So I got 25.5 thousandths. I got 26 thousandths. I got 25 thousandths. Going to the other side. 25 thousandths. 26 thousandths. Again, 26 thousandths. 25 thousandths. So 25 to 27 thousandths on all the way around all sides. So that worked out quite nicely. So I'm going to cut a couple more boards off this, probably some 20 thousandths, some 25, and probably some 50 thousandths. From that one piece of Padauk, which was 2 inches tall by 2 inches wide, I got 14 boards, 25 thousandths of an inch thick, and then I got 8 more that were 50 thousandths of an inch thick. So that's all came from that one board. And the blade's gumming up a little bit because it is Padauk. Padauk tends to be somewhat gummy. But that worked out quite nice. Got quite a bit of wood out of that. In summary review of these flat plate clamps for the Accu-Sled II to clamp this 1.5 inch tall sacrificial fence, it worked quite well. I'm quite pleased with the results. I started off cutting off some 3/4 inch cherry, which worked quite nicely. I then went to a piece of board which I could probably consider my thinnest board I can cut, which is a 1/4 inch thick. And I cut these pieces of wood which are 1/4 inch thick by 80 thousandths wide. and that worked quite nicely. And then I sliced a piece of Padauk, which was 2 inches tall, which is probably the maximum size I want to use with this carriage. Anything above that, I might get too much vibration, but I can do up to 2 inches thick and as thin as a 1/4 inch. But in review, actually, I'm quite happy with it. It worked quite well. In fact, I actually prefer this carriage over my regular L bracket carriages because it's much lower. I can see what I'm doing. I think I get less vibration using the Accu-Sled II than I do with my standard, 12-inch and 24-inch carriages. And it's a longer carriage, so I can do longer boards. But I'm quite happy with it, and I'll continue using it. In fact, since most of the boards I cut are less than 2 inches tall, I'll be using this for most of my projects. A lot of my Dizzy Bowl projects and segmented wood projects, they're all made from boards that are less than 2 inches tall. So I'll be using this carriage a lot for doing that. And also I'll be adding these brackets to our website, so they'll be available. Or you can make your own, as I said. They can easily be made out of 1/4 inch plywood. And I'll also be adding the 18 teeth per inch bandsaw blades. They're only available in 1/2 inch wide blades. They're not available in 3/4 wide blades. But for ripping, that's all I use is 1/2 inch wide blades. So once again, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, please give us a call or drop us an email. We're always happy to hear from you. And thank you once again for watching this video.